Alright lads, today we're going to be taking a look at the Challenger DS. This is the newest premium tank added to the British tech tree, and it is a new rank 6 premium that has been widely anticipated, at least by British mains like me. It's no secret that the Rui cat was a little long in the tooth at this point. It was located at battle rating 8.7 and basically got dragged into 9.7 games every game. As a result, trying to grind out the British tech tree at top tier was a little bit of a thorn in the ball, shall we say. Anyway, the Challenger DS is basically a carbon copy of the Challenger 1 Mk.2 found in the British tech tree, with the only unique thing being the camouflage. So we're essentially paying $60 for a copy and paste vehicle. As I said, this tank is a rank 6 and it is located at battle rating 9.7 for arcade, realistic, as well as simulator battles. To put the tank in your lineup, it's going to cost you 10,000 silver lions, and for the expert in 8 qualifications, it's 1,210,000 silver lions and 2,100 golden eagles respectively. So lads, is it worth paying all that money for this British tank? Or should you just buy the best British premium in the game instead? The Wyvern, the Centurion Action 10. Well lads, if you want to know the answer to that question, you're going to have to watch the rest of the video. Alright boys, so starting as always with the engine and survivability, and surprisingly, this British tank has got a pretty good engine in it. For those of you who are unaware, the previous British tank, the Chieftain, was kind of famous for never being, its engine basically just didn't work. They tried to make an engine that was multi-fuel instead of just running off diesel, and it basically destroyed the engine. It was a great tank, but it was let down by its reliability. Basically it just wouldn't start by itself really. Anyway, the British replaced the old Chieftains with the Challenger series, which is what we have here. This tank is powered by an engine producing 1,200 horsepower, combined with the vehicle's weight of a very large 62 tons. The tank surprisingly has a pretty average power to weight ratio of 19.4 horsepower per ton. This power to weight ratio is by no means good, but it is a little bit misleading. I found in game that playing this tank, the acceleration and mobility is actually rather good, and it is much better than the later Challenger 2 series of tanks. It accelerates pretty quickly, and it's quite responsive, at least when you're trying to add power or on the brake. But like a lot of other British vehicles, the main weakness in the mobility department is its responsiveness when it comes to actually trying to steer the vehicle. If you're moving down the road in a straight line, going around 30 miles an hour, if you press the A or the D key, it will be like your tracks suddenly became made of something very heavy. It basically just kills all the momentum and all the speed you have. This makes it quite hard to navigate delicate areas or tight urban areas, and really does slow you down. Now on the wide open maps this isn't really too much of an issue, but on a lot of the new maps that they've added to War Thunder recently, which tend to be quite city maps or tight urban areas, it is a little frustrating trying to drive it. However, in general, I don't really have any criticisms about the mobility of this tank. I found it quite pleasant to play, with the exception if you get a map, as I said, that is very urban, as it is a little frustrating going around the map, basically at half speed. Anyway, the survivability. Now we take a quick look at this picture. You can see that we have composite armor pretty much covering the entire upper frontal plate as well as the turret front. You will notice however, we have no composite armor on the lower glacis. This is quite a large weak spot in game, but in real life it was thought that if you are getting shot in the lower glacis then you've fucked up massively and it's your own fault really. Most tanks get hit in the turret rather than the upper frontal plate or the lower frontal plate, as that is the first thing that you see as it comes over a hill. Because of this, the defense was prioritized on the turret, and the Challenger ones were actually quite famous for having very strong turrets, as we'll see shortly. But anyway, against the Challenger's own gun at a range of 200 meters, the lower frontal plate provides you around 256mm of protection, and the upper frontal plate isn't much better surprisingly, with only 255mm of protection. It is worth pointing out however, that the Challenger ones weren't really designed to defend against APFSDS. This was probably one of the very first generation of composite armor tanks, and it was mainly designed to counter high explosive anti-tank or other chemical warheads. Things do get a lot better as we go up to the turret, with either side of the turret providing well over 400mm of protection. While this does defend you against your own gun, against some of the other guns at battle rating 9.7, and especially in an up tier, there are quite a lot of guns that can just go straight through your armour. Luckily though, the majority of the games I played were at around battle rating 9.7 or 10.0, but your armour is still quite useful. And I did actually manage to survive several penetrating hits, as the tank is quite roomy inside, and I believe the ammunition is covered in wet storage bins, making it quite hard for an ammunition cook-off. Speaking of ammunition, let's go on to the main gun. This is of course a 120mm L11A5. This was one of the very early NATO 120mm guns, and like a lot of the times the British tried to innovate, it was only really a partial success. You can carry 52 rounds of ammunition in total, with a first stage ammunition rack of 4 rounds, which is quite a big downside. It gives you 4 shots at a high reload speed, and then every reload after that is significantly longer. As you'd expect from a NATO tank, it does have the NATO standard gun depression and gun elevation, of 20 degrees of elevation and 10 degrees of gun depression, allowing you to put that great turret armor to work. As you'd expect, the gun is also fully stabilized in both the horizontal and vertical planes. The tank also has first generation thermal imaging. After all, the tank is from the 1980s, so we don't really have anything fancy in terms of optics. The one good thing about this tank, however, is certainly its reload speed. When stock, you can reload every 6.5 seconds, and with an ace crew, that comes down to 5 seconds. As I said, this is a very big bonus, but because you only have a 4-stage ammunition rack, you can't really exploit this on the battlefield. Anyway, moving on to the ammunition, and our stock round, or free round, is the L23 APF SDS. This travels rather slowly for an APF SDS round, at 1535 meters per second. This is basically the top round that is fired from the Chieftain Mark 10, and at a range of 500 meters, it'll only penetrate 405mm of armour. While this is quite impressive and should be enough to kill pretty much anything you come across, the British APF SDS rounds are notorious for having pretty bad angled pen and having rather questionable post-penetration damage. We also have the good old Besh round, the L34a1 Round. This is pretty much a gimmick at top tier. I guess you could use it for shooting at driver's hatches and stuff like that, but it's not really a reliable way of getting kills. We then also have the L34 Smoke Shell, which as you can guess is just for creating smoke. You can fire it towards an enemy to block their line of sight or just generally piss them off. And then finally, we have the L23a1 Round. This is the upgraded L23a1 and actually has less penetration at range, dropping down to 387mm of penetration. But you get a big increase to the angled penetration, dealing with one of the major issues of the earlier L23's round. During my time playing this tank, I found this shell to be quite good actually. While it doesn't have an impressive penetration, you don't really need it. At a range of 500 meters, it'll penetrate 225mm of 60 degree angled armor, which usually is more than enough for anything you come across. The T72AV terms can give you a little bit of a hard time, especially with their hold down. It certainly is more than usable really. You've got a pretty good damaging round with a high reload speed, so you can put a lot of lead down range if you want it. It just is worth bearing in mind that you do only have those 4 shots until you have to start reloading a lot slower. So, should you buy the Challenger DS? Well, I'd say it is certainly better than the Rui Cat, but whether you should spend $60, especially on a British vehicle, is got to be decided by you, to be honest. Now, I got this vehicle in a test drive from Gaijin. I haven't bought it myself, and I very much doubt that I am going to buy it. Granted, I do already have every British vehicle already unlocked, so there's not really a point for me, but I don't consider the Challenger DS to be one of the best Rank 6 premiums. That is still solidly either the WMA in the Chinese territory or the T72AV terms in the Soviet territory. So in terms of value for money, I'd say that the T72AV terms is a lot better. You get a lot more bang for your buck, if you will. But if you really do want a British Rank 6 premium, then I'd say that the Challenger DS is by far the better choice. But if you do want a British vehicle that is equally as good and if not overpowered, then again, the meme of the Wyvern, it's the best premium in the game, boys. Changed my mind. Anyway, if you liked the video, please do consider leaving a like and subscribing. And if you loved it, consider becoming a channel member, like new member Joseph Metcalf, as well as T, Biff Webster, Tomato Salad, Deboa LX, Just Someone, Destroyer 1805, Dr. Bob, Tans, William Tessier, and Lola Alfonsi. Thank you very much for becoming channel members, lads, and once again, thank you very much for watching.